Right, good afternoon, everybody. A few more in here than I was expecting. Is it raining outside or something? No? Okay, good. Okay, great. Well, I'm here to talk to you, firstly, about the fairly obvious benefits of direct sales. So, benefits of you guys, farmers and producers, selling your meat directly into consumer. And also, probably about the kind of lesser-known benefits that also stem from really short, efficient, cost-effective, profitable supply chains as well. Now, just to set the scene a little bit, really, I'd just like you to know I'm not a farmer. Obviously not much of a public speaker, to be honest. This is a bit new to me. I'm not a farmer. I'm not a climate change expert, nutritionist, economist, or academic. But what I do possess are skills and years of experience that will complement, support the incredible and vital work that everyone who's involved with regenerative agriculture is already doing, by hopefully helping to establish shorter, fairer, more ethical and productive supply chains for regen farmed livestock. In other words, I want to do my bit. Okay, and I don't just mean buying a bag for life. I really want to get involved here and help promote some really, really meaningful change. Okay, now, well, why am I here today in front of you? Well, again, let me just set the scene a little bit for you. So, why is a butcher from Leicester that most of you never heard of standing in front of you today? Well, essentially, what it comes down to are sleepless nights. Pondering the big issues that trouble the world today, and worrying about what kind of society and planet, if any, we'll be leaving for future generations. And wondering why the government and people of influence seem to be doing so little about these big issues. So after waiting in vain for years for somebody with influence to come up with some solutions that support regenerative farming, improve human health, increase social mobility, and address the skill shortage in the meat industry, which is a big thing, here's us offering some practical solutions based on 36 years of meat industry experience and knowledge that hopefully have the potential to right a few wrongs, okay? Now, these are the things that really keep me awake at night, okay? Climate change, first one. I don't sleep a lot, you can tell, right? Human health, another one. So the more I've read about regenerative agriculture, the more I've read about nutrition, the more I've read about everything else, the more it worries me. So I thought we'd best have a go at doing something about it, which is why I'm here, okay? Right, society, another issue. Serious problems here. Uneven society. You know, there's plenty in the newspapers about massive bonuses for petrochemical bosses and so on, and, you know, a rise in food banks as well. It ain't on, okay? Food security, well, you know, a big subject, something I read a little bit about, which worries the pants out of me. I'll be quite honest. I thought we'd try and do something about it whilst we were here. Right, so the crisis we face, unfair unemployment landscape. You know, I don't know whether it'll surprise any of you. Kind of 1 in 5 people that are involved working in the food industry are living in poverty. That's the first one. So you can get to a stage where you are producing fantastic quality meat for a very affluent market, but can't afford to buy the stuff yourself. Not right, is it? That's sort of, I don't know. I start to think about Far Eastern sweatshops that stitching designer T-shirts for designer companies to sell on, but the people that are making them can't afford to buy them. It doesn't seem to work for me. Anyway, right, and the increase in food banks and homelessness in the UK, it is a thing. Intensive farming methods equaling lower animal welfare standards. Industrial food production systems producing ultra-processed foods, giving us poor human health, rise in type 2 diabetes, obesity, Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, diet-related cancers, just about anything that you can attribute to a bad diet. And indeed, ultra-processed foods containing an awful lot of seed oils and an awful lot of ultra-processed goods that really aren't good for you. And again, we know about this one, don't we? It's why you lot are here. And you know an awful lot more about it than I do, okay? Environmental impact of intensive farming. This is the one that troubles me, okay? Now, I'd like to have been here yesterday. I was on a block boning out beef because we can't find butchers. It's a sad thing, isn't it? That's where I was yesterday. Now, this, I don't know whether this one will surprise you. I was on a Zoom phone call last night, and I was hearing that some of our bigger food processors, meat processors in the UK, now see fit to fly in round about 100 Filipino workers to work in the British meat industry at an expense of around about £12,000 per worker to come in. That's happening over around about 16 sites in the UK. Why? I don't know. Really don't. Okay, now, setting the scene, the age-old problem. We're going to start talking about increasing revenue on livestock. Some of you may already be doing this. For those of you that aren't, we'll just take you through this, one or two solutions and opportunities for this one, okay? But if anything, if you're not already selling directly, we'd like to maybe inspire you to have a bit of a go. Okay, so farmer or the livestock producer receives on average about 8% of the value of the food sold. Not great really, is it? Okay, most of the meat sold in the UK is through supermarkets. Around about 80% meat in the UK sold through the supermarkets. We think there's a solution to this, okay? Now, okay, so shortening the supply chain. Okay, that allows farmers better opportunity to increase the financial returns. Okay, then with that, we've got the problem, we've got the potential to solve several of these big issues. So the more revenue that comes into the farm, the greater the opportunity to pay workers better wages that are on the farm or even create jobs in that meat business. Okay, this is a solution that also provides healthy, nutrient-dense food to all, broadens access not just to the privileged few here, okay, everybody in society. So basically, it's affordable. Shortens the supply chain, as we've already mentioned, which is a good thing, cuts down on transportation and also creates jobs in the local area, protects our food security, which obviously is an important thing. Also minimises waste, so less going into the bone bin to be taken away, can be turned into usable product, the better. It increases the return on investment, which obviously is important. It's funny we have to talk about generating revenue and food supply in the same breath, really. I know it's a thing, but surely, you know, it's more important than money. I know it's got to pay for itself. Right, it promotes employment opportunities and replenishes the skills shortages. Okay, now, supports sustainable and regenerative livestock production systems. That's who we prefer to work with. We prefer to work with ethical producers. There's only one of me, and it's difficult for me to get across an awful lot of sites. And basically, it just drains me. If I'm not if I'm not working with ethical producers, it just pulls all the energy out of me. It's really no good. Okay, it also has the potential to reconnect rural and urban areas. I don't know whether any of you have read the book Divide by Anna Jones, journalist. Fascinating read, but quite a bit in there about reconnecting rural and urban areas as well, and certainly in the form of job creation as well. Now, revenues from a whole carcass of beef, so 350 kilo carcass, generally, okay. Now, this is based upon working with tens of producers that we've worked with over the years, an average generally. So this is generally what happens if you're selling into industry, from our understanding working with clients we've had. So The average rearing cost of a body of beef, depending on how intensive and the level of inputs that are going into that is around about £1,000. So we've valued that around about £1,000. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less within your own system. Now, that's sold to the processor. Now, currently, we're working with a company based over in Rutland. They have some fantastic South Devon Angus crosses on a grass-fed system over there. Currently getting $4.60 a kilo on dead weight on their carcasses. Okay, so £1,600 from the processor minus your production cost gives you a revenue of £610. Okay, great. Now, if we look here, now this little system, this is a very basic cutting spec that we have here. This is what we refer to as a winter cutting spec. This is more along the lines of your kind of traditional British butcher's shop. Okay, here. Now, you can see there in order we have premium steak meat up at the top. We've got roasting joints on there, so on. We have graded the trim down there as well. We've also put the offal in. So the offal's a fantastic thing now, particularly if you're using regeneratively reared livestock. People who really know about nutrition and are on clean eating diets, they'll know that they're really nutrient dense, so they sell an awful lot better. Now, what we've done there is we've put a price per kilo on there, which is kind of just about average. That's about affordable, okay? About affordable for most people in society. Some people may be selling it a little bit more, some a little bit less. This is typically what we would recommend, okay? Now, what we've actually done here as well, we've had this cut up at a cutting plant. So this has been done by a butchery firm that specialise in butchering carcasses for farmers to have back so that they can sell them on directly to the consumer. Now, if we look here, the revenue generated when all of those items are sold, $2,950. Okay, the rearing cost, £1,000 on there. We've got slaughter and transport that came in at £200. The cut-up cost and packaging cost for that, £400. Okay, so what you end up with, margin on that, £1,300, which is better than your £600, we think. Now, we're not suggesting that everybody goes over to selling directly. For those of you selling into larger producers, fantastic, continue to do that. Maybe one that probably isn't the sort of size and shape that would pay premium from the processor. As long as it's got a bit of covering, send it into the cutting plant. We can do something with it. We can make it look good, and we can sell that for you. Return a slightly better margin for that on there. So £1,300, yeah, instead of your £600, £1,300, which I think is better. Okay. Now, can be one or two issues with that particular cutting spec. Some bits are more popular than others. Okay, so what we'll tend to find, particularly with these sections, is, as I said, some are a bit more popular than others. Some sell an awful lot easier than others as well. So what we would typically do is we'd take in the carcass in the first instance. We'd have a look at it. We'd assess the carcass, see what it was more suitable for doing. Age, sex, breed, the rearing system, how it was finished can also have a fair old impact on it. Now, what you will notice if we move back here, there is quite a large proportion of kind of what they would call secondary cuts or lesser popular bits. So, particularly when we're talking about minces, stews, braising steaks, and so on and so forth. Not too bad in the summer if you're able to sell things like beef burgers, but there is quite a volume of it. It's always traditionally been a little bit of an issue in box schemes, in the fact that people will buy a box of meat, but invariably there are an awful lots of packets of minced or diced meat sitting in the bottom of the freezer. Now, people will tend to buy 2 boxes on average, and then they won't continue to buy boxes anymore, which kind of nullifies that. So what we decided to do was to make this really, really efficient. Okay, so what we have here is an optimised cutting spec. Now, before we got to that, what we could have done is we could have turned some of those stewing meats, some of those braising meats, etc., into kind of your lesser known premium steak cuts. I'm talking about your kind of chuck eyes, your Denver steaks and so on. But to be honest, it's difficult to market them. Depends which market you're selling into, but typically we can really struggle to market them. So on this optimised cutting spec, what we've decided to do is we've cut to the chase. So what we've now done is we've developed a range of products that tend to be an awful lot more popular. Okay, so at the top there we've got our prime steak. So that's been dry aged for anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks, again depending upon age, sex of the animal, and so on. Okay, then we took the offal because the offal is really quite a popular set of products to sell now. We've sold that as offal, and all of that's gone. Then we took the top sides and we took the silver sides, difficult to sell, particularly during the summer months, and we decided we'd make some Bresaola from them. It's a dry-aged Italian product, if some of you are unfamiliar with that. The biltong, which is a fantastic, high-yielding, high-profit form of snacky meat, very popular in South Africa and over here now as well. We also did a little bit of salami with it, so it was a sort of traditional kind of proper German pepperoni type of a product there. Now, what that did, it used up a large proportion of those lesser popular cuts. So what we've now done is we've tipped that balance. So we've got desirable products, we've got premium steak meat, okay, and then we decided that with some of the rest of the meat, we go on and create some nutritionally balanced ready meals based on 100-gram portions. Now, produce those. Those are to be sold there at £3 per unit, so really affordable. So all of a sudden we're getting a nutrition delivery system into people that aren't on that don't earn massive amounts of money. So really, really affordable here. And we've also then looked at rendered cooking fat. So an awful lot of product that would traditionally go into the bin, cooking fat and bones as well. Based upon a little bit of market research, we looked at the price that both of these products were currently selling for. And we found that if we were to sell them at those prices, we could increase the bottom line quite considerably. So we've got some rendered cooking fat. Now, this is a really easy sell from a marketing point of view. Regeneratively farmed livestock. We know about the beneficial qualities of the fat, fantastic. Render that, we put that into 250-gram packs there for people to cook with. Brilliant. We're avoiding vegetable oils to cook in. We've now got a source of fat and oil that we can cook at high temperatures that's really, really healthy. And then we also made a bone broth. So we've got some bone broth now. It can be the base of stews, sauces, all manner of things. Okay? Now, not only the bone's gone into this as well, but also a lot of the connective tissue. So connective tissue, some of you will know is gristle. So during the whole processing of that carcass, we separate all of the trim out, we separate all of the bone out, we separate out all of the connective tissues as well. So connective tissue, hundreds of times higher in collagen protein, which is the stuff we want in our bone broth. That goes in as well. Okay, now, just a little tidbit after that, we've also discovered that once you've produced that, all of the gristle that's been cooked long and slow, once you pop it through a mincer, it's really good for thickening stocks and soups as well. So literally you end up with zero waste with that. Now, what we did, we used our cutting plant over in Rutland, firstly to do the fresh meat work. I've got a little development unit. I made the charcuterie in there. We got that outsourced. Okay, I did the charcuterie. And then we used a local agricultural college to do the rest for us. So the local agricultural college just happens to have a hospitality college with it. It's a really expensive commodity for a college to buy in meat. So we gave them the opportunity as part of a project to develop us a bone broth and some cooking fat, which they did. It became part of their coursework. They got fantastic results from that. It was graded very, very highly. And guess what? They were able to generate a little bit of revenue as well. All works, involving the whole community here. Now, once we'd sold all of that, after costs, we returned £3,307, which is considerably more, obviously, than your 600 quid. Okay, a little bit more in it there. It is doable. Okay, now, just to bring you back to this is part of the market research. So this tends to be what we would call Shoreditch Bovril in the trade. Okay, in other words, bone broth or beef tea. Okay, now I've got no problem whatsoever selling into London to all of these wonderful trendy people a bit of stock with some veg in and charging this price, because that will fund the rest of the products we're making. All of a sudden, overall, we can start to reduce the retail costs, not only on steak, premium meat cuts, but also potentially on things like charcuterie as well. So it is a thing. It's just figuring out what's going on in the marketplace and producing accordingly. Okay. So your shorter supply chain, your fresh meat. We know about fresh meat sales. That's where your premium meat comes from. Your ready meals, fantastic. So ready meals again, perfect way to get nutrient dense food into people based on a 100-gram portion. Great, fantastic if you've got some kids at home, a little bit of frozen veg, something like that. Nice bit of quinoa or quinoa if you're from Leicester. Okay, with this one. Okay, it's a meal for the kids. And charcuterie. Now, it's great. Now, I recognise a face in the crowd here who introduced me to biltong, I think probably around about 15 years ago. It was a great way to get rid of silverside then, and that's where the whole charcuterie journey began for me, really. But it's great, and it really works well to balance carcass, particularly if we've got a range of products that have got some serious demand. We've got your fat and we've got your bone broth, okay? Now, your wholesale margin, so again, just to recap, selling into larger processors, 600 quid. Good, it's a living, I suppose. Your retail cut, so your basic fresh meat cut, that's if you can sell every bit of the carcass. Difficult to balance the carcass up, okay? As we've said, some bits are more popular than others. Well, the bits that aren't that popular, why not make something that is more popular with and job done, okay? Marketing's an awful lot easier, okay? So 1,300 quid, again, better than your 600 quid. Cooked, cured and cooked. Cooked, cured and cooked. So your fresh meat cuts, your cured meats and your cooked ready meals as well. We worked on a very simple ragu recipe. Could be anything you wanted. Could be stroganoffs, could be whatever you wanted. Bourguignon, whatever's popular. Okay, 3,307 quid on a return then. Now, what we've got the opportunity to do with that, as I mentioned at the beginning, if we're increasing revenue onto the farm, it offers opportunity to either set up our own processing unit on the farm, or it offers an opportunity for more work for custom cut-up plants that can do it for us. Now the reason I don't farm is because I'm a butcher. Now, over the years when I've helped set up farm shops for various different butchers, for various different farmers, they tend to like to think they're a butcher, and that's great, but there's always something carving, dyeing. There'll always be something that needs sorting out. There's a gate that needs fixing. Just when you need them to help you pack meat, generally, that's the way it is. So farmers farm, butchers butcher. They tend to be a little bit more efficient if you kind of stick within your own sector. But as long as we work together, I use a bit of a team analogy here. So I don't know whether any of you follow the rugby, but wasn't Saturday good? Fantastic. Okay, good. Now, I normally use George Ford as an example, but he went off after 20 minutes. The thing I always say is, I don't want George Ford clearing out a ruck for me. He'd probably do me a job, but I want him in the backfield making decisions. So if you're able to work to your strengths and what you do best, brilliant. Just surround yourself with a team of people who have the skills to complement what you're doing. The team works better, and guess what? We all win towards the end of it. Okay? Now, broadens access to better quality food for everybody. Now, this is an important thing. Now, you know, the word or the phrase that does crop up from time to time is people need to pay more for food. Yeah, I kind of accept that. But, you know, should we not be asking the question, why can't people afford to buy the food in the first place? Or why is the food so expensive to produce? Let's just have a look at these things. So it does make it more affordable. And what you've got there, instead of kind of relying on that sort of really affluent London market, which is pretty much choked now, okay, I think they've had their fill of gold encrusted tomahawk steaks from various different restaurants, and you know, oligarchs don't quite have the money that they did have to spend on meat in the capital anymore. So it is a market that's getting a little bit saturated. And what we do tend to find largely is people that are an awful lot wealthier tend to be vegans, so they're not going to be buying that expensive meat anyway. So what you may as well do is to get some mass appeal in there. So if you select the items and products that you're selling, price them accordingly, sell them into different markets, what you're able to do is to bring the overall cost of your basic products down. Increase revenue for farmers, that one's obvious, okay? Now, how do we do this? Well, it's fairly obvious, really. It's, you know, it's great if you've got somebody that will just cut up meat for you. Now, the age-old problem, particularly when it comes to direct sales and farmers having the meat cut up, you've got butchers, generally retail butchers, that sell meat for a living. That's what they do. Their labour cost will be exactly the same for cutting up a meat for them to sell directly to the public than they will be to cut your carcass up and let you have it back to sell on. But they've not made the $3,500. They've made 400 quid for the cut-up cost, okay? Now, as much as they want to support you, particularly during Christmas time, it does get impossible. So what we really need to do, and there's an opportunity together here, is we need to start to create units, processing plants, call them whatever you will, that do several things. Now, this is very, very dependent, obviously, upon abattoirs. So years ago, and I'm old enough to remember, you know, being trained as a slaughterman and floor dressing just outside of Melton Mowbray. At that time, there were 6 abattoirs in 6 villages, which was great. They were all attached to butcher shops, brilliant. Over the years, the number of abattoirs has got less and less and less, but they've got bigger and bigger and bigger. They don't always want to serve smaller producers, so it's difficult. So if you can find an abattoir, great. Once you've found your abattoir, you need somewhere to cut it up. Now, what we thought we'd do here, and this is all possible, it's just a little bit of joined up thinking, is we need somewhere to do it all in, okay? Now, lack of training opportunities for retail butchers. We've gone from something like 15,000 independent high street butchers in 1995 to something like 5,000 now. Now, not all of those are processing whole carcasses in volume for a trainee to become proficient. It's that repetition of skills. Yeah, it's that repetition of action that builds up a skill set and cements that. Basically, you've got to be doing more of it, and then you get skilled quicker. Now, not all of these high street butchers or farm shops are actually cutting whole carcasses. Bit of a problem, okay? So processing is different. So processing butchers, as good as they are, very, very skilled, high-speed work, they tend to be working on a single species, not all manner of species. And they also will never be trained to make salami, ready meals, pastrami, doesn't matter, whatever it is. Now, what we do feel is that we need somewhere to do it all in, okay? So what we are proposing is some sort of centre of excellence, come processing unit. You can put whatever name you like on it. For me, you can call it Alison. It really doesn't matter. What we need is one of these. Now, it's a centre that will be performing multiple tasks. Obviously, we've got we've got the butchery, we've got the contract curing, we've got the contract cooked meat products to go back to the primary producer or the farmer to sell on. Now, as I mentioned briefly before, it is an educational, or partly an educational establishment. Now, the raw material, i.e. meat, is quite an expensive thing to buy in. So what if you didn't have to pay for it, but what if you cut it up and then you could charge for the cut-up service and then give it back? It's a bit of a double bubble, which is good. So your college is already saving for a start. Okay. So along with that, it's also offering training and apprenticeship opportunities. So there's a training levy currently, which is paid into by a lot of the larger processors that actually goes to fund apprentices. Another revenue stream coming in here. Okay. Specialist courses. So everybody likes to get a bit hands-on. I've noticed that everybody likes to play the butcher, particularly when there's a bit of fire on. It's good, isn't it? You know, and you normally spot them, can't you? So you'd have to have, you know, a beard here, a full sleeve of tattoos, the leather apron, a massive knife. Okay, everybody likes to play the butcher a bit, which is great. It is a good bit of fun. Okay, so we're also going to offer here as well specialist courses. You as a general member of the public can come along. We'll teach you whatever butchery skill you'd like, and we'll obviously charge you for it. Perfect. Okay. We've got retail in there, so quite obviously, if you've got people in there learning to cut meat, it just makes sense that you can retail it directly to the public. Great. It's fantastic. Okay. Packaging, everything done there. Your packaging design there, your branding design there, everything. Special events, showcases, spaces that we can lease out for events such as this. Okay. Now, the catering as well. So a little bit of outside catering there wouldn't go amiss. Now, we've got an awful lot of revenue streams coming in here. Now, what I am edging away from is government support. It's obviously not going to come. So these things are going to have to be funded without government support. It's just not coming through. So to have somewhere that's actually generating revenue and becomes a viable business in its own right, great. Now, we see these units in more of an urban area. Now, and that's for several reasons. Okay, so the first one is urban areas are a bit easier to get to. Okay, now, if you're an apprentice or you're working in food production, potentially you're not going to have an awful lot of money. Now, public transport's a ridiculous price. If you're lucky enough to get a bus to take you into a rural area, great. If not, you're pretty much stuck. So you've either got to go and pick people up in a bus and bring them to work, or you've got to have a car. Now, we've all seen what fuel prices are currently. Okay, so in an urban area, okay, somewhere that sort of links the rural and the urban. Okay, now the urban and the rural, awful lot of people there that are on very modest incomes. I know one or two farmers that use food banks. Ridiculous, that, isn't it? It's true. Okay, I know one or two farmers that buy value chicken. Ridiculous, isn't it? It's true. Okay, awful lot of people. Okay, now, you know, particularly in the urban areas as well. So we've got people crying out for jobs. Now, if I give you an example, if you're lucky enough to get an apprenticeship in an abattoir with one of the larger processors, as an apprentice, they're starting you on 15 quid. And then once you're qualified, it's up to 18.75. That ain't a bad wage now, is it? It's all right. So all we need to do is to create opportunities for people that haven't had them. Currently, there are no technical colleges in the UK that cover butchery to this degree. I think it's what we need. Like I've said, if you've not got a placement to training to begin with, you can't get training. Okay? This place will be paying apprentices. This is the idea, on around about £8 an hour. Now, we're not going to keep them on forever. By the time they're qualified, we move them off. But by that time, they're going to be that good. They go into industry. They're desirable. Their earning potential increases. Fantastic. Bit of social mobility. Here we go. Now, the more money they're earning, the more money they're going to be spending in the local area. Guess what? The economy benefits as well. Guess what? Access to better food. The diet gets better. Lessens the burden on an overburdened NHS. Now, we start to touch on this now. You're working together, okay? So connection as well to other human beings. Brilliant. Fantastic for mental health. We get them out on the farms as well so that they understand the whole food chain, the whole process. You're working on the farm. Brilliant. Connection to nature, connection to other people as well. Brilliant for mental health. Now, it does astonish me. There's something called farm fitness. Have you seen this thing now? So basically you get IT consultants in from London. You equip them with a sledgehammer and a lorry tyre and go, right, crack on, and you charge them for it. Now, we all know that working in agriculture and the meat industry keeps you fit. It's great. So you get everything together here. It's brilliant. I mean, if you look at the basis of integrated medicine, if you like, okay, so the 5 main principles of functional health: sleep, rest. Slightly different, but they both need to be here, okay? Movement, you get in movement here, or exercise, it's great. Diet's another one, that's brilliant. But most importantly, connection for mental health. So we're doing an awful lot of things here. Now, if those revenue streams and positives were not enough on their own, we're going to start now to look at some extra revenue. Now, you know, why not go for it? Why not do a borough market-esque thing in a semi-rural or urban area? We want plenty of parking. There are an awful lot of cattle markets sites that aren't doing anything anymore. Let's have a look at some of those. Now, this time, we can offer space to ethical fish producers. We can offer space to bakers. We can offer space to what are people that called that sell veg called? Greengrocers, that's the ones, yeah. Greengrocers, it's all there. So now it's become a one-stop shop. Guess what? It's affordable, okay? Now, in our opinion, this is what needs to happen, okay? So, back a little bit here, okay. It's a dedicated centre, local, intended to support an awful lot of people. Okay. Now, in summary, we'll look at these revenue streams again. It's partly funded by the government through its training levy. We're going to get extra revenue from carcass processing, retail income, that's direct to the consumer, ordinary sort of butcher shop, concessions from your market hall, leasing those out, your educational forums, endless opportunities here. Now, this is kind of where really the main reason of us coming here today. Not only to sort of hopefully try and inspire those of you that aren't selling directly to have a go, but also to come and make some friends, really, okay? This is what needs to happen. What we need is to be able to work together, okay? So that's where we are with this one, okay? Now, coming towards the end of this now, okay? You'll have to excuse the rambling style, but it needed saying. This needed to be got off my chest, and that's what happened, okay? So, bit of blue sky thinking. We think that there's safety in numbers. There's a lot of diversity here. It's bang on trend currently. It's very, very fashionable. It's access for everybody. And don't we need to leave a bit of a legacy, really? Think so? Okay, good. Right. We'll finish up a little bit early there, guys. If there's any questions, anything you'd like me to go over, please just shout up. I'll do my best to answer those. Okay? Brilliant. Good. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. That talk was absolutely brilliant. I was just going to ask how what you're describing in the sort of food hall situation.
Yes.
How you're envisaging that will be properly affordable for normal people, and how that differs to like a normal farm shop, which are normally completely extortionate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a difference, isn't there? You got farm shop, and then you've got aspirational countryside store. Okay, this is inclusive, not exclusive. Anybody that's approached and offered a space in here will have to tick an awful lot of ethical boxes. Now, you might think that that'll be cutting your own throat, but what you tend to find, particularly with market garden producers, okay, that have been potentially leased space on a friendly farmer's land, massively profitable without extracting the urine on retail prices as well. So very, very short supply chains, as I'm sure you know, mean less links in the chain or more or less slices out of the pie, essentially. So we're able to pass on savings. That would be the approach to that. Okay. Anybody? Good. So. Okay.
Thank you very much. Do you see a position for on-farm abattoir, for slaughter on farms before?
Yes, I do. I know a little bit about them now. I'm yet to see the cost application or the charge that would have to be passed on to a farmer. So, essentially, a minimum of 2 slaughter operatives. One of them with an HGV driving licence, or a third as a driver, a meat inspector. You've got to be going through a few bodies of beef to make that pay, I would say. I'd like to say yes, I really would. Quite whether the figures stack up in terms of costs or not, I'm not 100% sure. I think the really important thing is that there's a meat inspector on site. In order for you to be able to sell it, obviously, into the public, it does need inspection. Potentially, for me, when I did a bit of it, it was the incision and palpation element of it, so actually physically touching carcasses, examining tissues and organs and so on, that get me a better overall view and better ability to assess the health of the animal. So juries, I'm not saying no. I'd like to know more about it before I give you much more of an informed answer. Sir, did you want to ask a question? Yeah. Yes, yeah.
That I was speaking to briefly.
Yeah.
And the figure I heard a while ago was it was going to be about £1,000 a day to have that on farm.
Right.
So God knows, how many carcasses you'd have to process to make that worth your while.
Thank you for that.
No, the other thing, it wasn't so much a question as just a comment, I guess, on the numbers.
Yeah.
Obviously, for a farmer, the value in just selling direct to ABP or whoever's, you might get a small margin, but it goes off the lorry and is done.
Sure.
From doing some direct sales myself, I know that there's potentially a huge labour implication in direct selling.
Sure.
And obviously, if you're trying to cost your own time into that, which I think every farmer should, that immediately can alter those figures drastically.
Absolutely, which is why it's easier to kind of look towards an outsourced service. The butcher or the butchery staff will be an awful lot more efficient, arguably, than you would potentially be as well. Now, this can be a phased approach, and we've adopted this with several other clients we've had. So, to begin with, if you wanted to try having a carcass back to sell yourself directly from the farm, packed and ready to go, brilliant. If you want to then start to take on more of your own butchery, so rather than be faced with a carcass of beef, which can be quite daunting if you're a bit new to it, you can have boneless subprimals back that you can cut yourself. We can start to cut the carcass into manageable forms for you to manage, okay? You can then start to, if it's the right system for you, you can then start to develop your own on-site butchery. But what it does mean is that as much as I love a fantastic Fisher modular building, wonderful bits of kit, they are quite an expense to begin with. They're fantastic value for money. They're fantastic bits of kit. But, you know, if you're going to be that sort of 40, 50 grand mark, you've got to be pretty much sure that you've got a market there. Now, what better way to test that you've got a market than dripping bits through? You know, try this product here, try another product there. If the demand increases, and particularly when you start to look at your balance sheet, you've then got a bit more of a detailed business plan to take to a bank or even to some sort of grant funding organisation from that. So I tend to find that it's a little bit more cost effective to outsource the butchery, essentially. But yeah, I mean, the whole 400 quid thing, it's good value. There's a bit of margin in there for the farmer. And the labour cost, that was charged out at £20 an hour. So the company that are getting the cut-up work done are paying the butchers £20 an hour. Everybody wins. And guess what? If you keep the prices where they are, more accessible to all, everybody wins. Sorry, I went over the top a little bit there, didn't I? Did that answer your question? Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Madam in the middle.
Hello.
Hiya.
Thank you. I'm not sure I've really understood, because I, at the moment, am running a farm, which I'm finding very time-consuming.
Yes.
And when I start doing direct sales, that takes an enormous amount of time.
Okay.
So whilst it is possible to get more for your meat, you're basically doing 2 jobs instead of 1 job.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Are you suggesting that instead we send our carcasses into a processing plant with a food hall run by someone else, or setting that up ourselves?
Yes. That would be the ideal. That would be the ideal. They currently don't exist because technical colleges don't exist. What does exist currently are processing plants. So smaller, bespoke cutting plants for farmers such as yourself to have carcasses back. Now, we're working on connecting with other places. I mentioned the hospitality college that will actually take on making those ready meals for you. Yeah, it's spread out. It's not massively efficient. But in order to prove the point and to prove that it's popular, it's a good idea and something that people want to get behind, we've got to prove the point that A, it's popular, and B, it's profitable. So the idea would be best use for you, I would say, get it all outsourced, sit back, relax and sell it is what we'd like. And then get you to just continue doing the fantastic work you're doing in the fields. That's how I'd see it. Does that make sense? Sure? Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, I do see them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, regional. Yeah. If you're lucky enough to have an abattoir, brilliant. We've got to keep putting animals through smaller abattoirs, otherwise they'll just close. You know. Yes, I do. Regional. This is never going to be a thing that's going to be able to be one great big national centre. There are an awful lots of logistical issues with that. So yeah, very much a regional site. Yeah.
Hi, is there scope for including organic meat in the system? Organic
Completely.
Farmers traditionally find it very hard to find butchers who want to deal with their product because it's an extra layer of bureaucracy.
Well, it is, but the paperwork's not that bad, in all honesty. So it's just a separate day for organic. It's pretty much it. As long as it's labelled up clearly in the actual carcass chiller, and they're separated enough to satisfy the producer, and all of the items off that carcass get tagged with the right ear tag, sealed and so on. It really isn't too much of a problem, to be honest. Fairly common practice. Yeah. Hiya.
painting there, and I think like this talk's probably one of the most relevant talks that I've been to these past 2 days to sort of where I'm living at the minute, because I think sometimes it can seem just a bit irrelevant with the pricing where it's at now, and I really do want to just push it to that next level. And I think sometimes these ideas can seem really abstract, but in terms of getting young people actually knowing that these skills are needed to push it to that next level. My question is basically, so if you're thinking about setting up like this education centre, processing plant, whatever you want to call it, like without government funding, you're obviously going to have to get the general public on board. But like, how do you get the general public? Because I find that when the people that tend to be interested in this are the people either that's already involved and interested in the environmental farming side of it, or people that have taken a step back and had the time. Whereas like, you know, like parents that are like working all the time, how do you get them to really we make an awful lot of convenience food, but instead of kind of what some of the larger supermarkets have done over the last 60 years, and pardon my French, put shite in it, we take the shite out and put all the good stuff in. So what we're looking to create are, and particularly any of you that are parents, you know, we have a constant fight at dinner time. You know, I found if it's crunchy on the outside, soft on the inside, they'll eat anything, and I can hide anything in there, right? So basically, we're looking to create very affordable, nutritionally balanced convenience meals for working people. I think the other thing probably to add, and you're raising an interesting point, is accessibility. And I do hear this moan an awful lot from, they're generally third and fourth generation butcher shops, are fairly well established, complaining that the supermarket's taking all of their trade. And then when I look at the hours that they're actually trading, so they're still open at 6, they have an hour's lunch, and half day Wednesday and Saturday, they have Sunday off, and they close at 4 o'clock. Now, most people finish work at 5, so even if you want it to support your local, you can't. So what we do need to do is to sort of replicate in some way, shape or form the convenience that supermarkets have started to champion. Okay, now, I'm all for online delivery, but essentially, if you can work from home, you're on a better paid job. So you can wait for the courier to come and deliver, is that caveat there. So we've just got to be open. We've got to make it more supermarket-esque and connect with the general public better. It's easy. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, guys. Yes, sir. I think really, I suppose I've got quite a unique perspective. I'm originally from a council estate in the middle of Leicester. I just, for some reason, ended up working in the countryside. So I suppose I've got a fairly unique perspective, and I see both sides of it. Sir.
I may have missed it because it's a bit late in the conference, but you seem to have skipped over the issue of slaughtering a bit quickly. Your cut centres are beyond the slaughtering, right?
Yeah, sorry.
So you need someone else to do the slaughtering.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the abattoir, I mean, the dream would be to have our own abattoir, but the reality of it is to build an abattoir that can handle 20, 30 bodies of beef a week, it's something like about a £4 million capital expenditure to get that set up. So we will be talking about teaming with regional abattoirs. So, yeah, obviously Kildare and then bought over. So my mistake if that wasn't clear. So, but, yeah.
Well, I thought it was clear, and then actually I understood it correctly. Yeah. But your only recommendation, and I'm not expecting you to have an answer for everything, is keep using the small ones.
Absolutely, for now.
Because they seem to be dying off very quickly.
Very much so.
And in the European Union, they have just now loosened the regulations for on-farm slaughter, which is best for animal welfare because it happens in the middle of the herd.
Absolutely.
And it does, I mean, and the challenge is then that actually might help your model.
Yeah, sure.
Because the key problems are there to bleed the carcass in 60 or 90 seconds, something like that. Yeah. And then in a cool box, get it to the abattoir. Yeah. And there you actually have more time.
Yeah, which would be great. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we've got some logistical challenges in the UK in the fact that, you know, particularly Welsh hill farms and kind of, you know, inaccessible areas, it's actually getting a carcass over. But yes, there is always an answer. But essentially, to begin with, teaming with established abattoirs to keep them alive. Just one thing that I will leave you on now. So we do need to support smaller abattoirs. So the government are actually looking to cut the slaughter person's apprenticeship completely. So not entirely sure. That's unless we get an awful lot more uptake. They are considering pulling that. So I don't know where we're going to get the slaughtermen from. This is just some kind of news that I received last night. So, yeah, we do need to support local wherever possible. Okay? Right. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for your patience, guys. Bless you.